Is Trinity logical? Do we have to take it by faith alone? Can we completely comprehend the Trinity? Yes, Trinity is logical, but we cannot completely comprehend it. But we can offer a logical explanation, how God could be three in one, without violating the laws of logic, and why we can't completely comprehend it. In our last video we had an overview of the Trinity. This video we will explain it. Let's go over the doctrine of Trinity. Christians can show there is one God. God is three persons. Each person is fully God. The problem is, non-Christians argues, that if there is one God only one person can be God. If each is not the other, but each is fully God, then it is logically impossible. Either one has to be God, or each is a third of God, or each person is a personality or mode of one God. But this is not what the Bible teaches. It is an attempt to reduce the mind of God to a level which we can fathom. Humans are attempting to make up a God that they can understand, instead of what Bible teaches about a God who is not limited to our mental capacity. The point is, just because we cannot understand a God who is three in one, that doesn't mean it is not possible or logical. Good example is seen in the study of Euclidean geometry. This includes the study of higher dimensions of space, so the possibility of 4 dimensions, 5 dimensions, or even up to 11 dimensions. Such things are completely impossible for us to understand, yet they are mathematically right and logically possible. It can even exist in some sense beyond 3 dimension. Just we cannot fathom how 4-dimensional cube will look like. That doesn't mean there is no such thing. As Carl Sagan explains.
Consider a cube. We can imagine a cube in the following way. You take a line segment and move it at right angles to itself in equal length. That makes a square. Move that square in equal length at right angles to itself, and you have a cube. Now, this cube, we understand, casts a shadow. And that shadow we recognize. It's, ordinarily drawn in third grade classrooms as 2 squares with their vertices connected. Now, if we look at the shadow of a 3-dimensional object in 2 dimensions, we see that, in this case, not all the lines appear equal. Not all the angles are right angles. The 3-dimensional object has not been perfectly represented in its projection in 2 dimensions, but that's part of the cost of losing a dimension in the projection. Now, let's take this 3-dimensional cube and project it, carry it to a 4th physical dimension. Not that way, not that way, not that way, but at right angles to those 3 directions. I can't show you what direction that is, but imagine that there is a 4th physical dimension. In that case, we would generate a 4-dimensional hypercube, which is also called a tesseract. I cannot show you a tesseract because I and you are trapped in 3 dimensions. But what I can show you is the shadow in 3 dimensions of a 4-dimensional hypercube or tesseract. This is it. And you can see it's 2 nested cubes, all the vertices connected by lines. And now the real tesseract in 4 dimensions would have all the lines of equal length and all the angles right angles. That's not what we see here, but that's the penalty of projection. So you see, while we cannot imagine the world of 4 dimensions, we can certainly think about it.
In the same way we cannot completely understand a tesseract, that doesn't mean there's no such thing. In the same way just we cannot understand the Trinity completely with our 3-dimensional understanding, that doesn't mean it is impossible. In our dimension, one person is one being and 2 different person is 2 different beings, but in a higher dimension one being can be multiple person. As C.S. Lewis said, the human level is a simple and rather empty level. On the human level one person is one being, and any 2 persons are 2 separate beings. Just as, in 2 dimensions, say on a flat sheet of paper, 1 square is 1 figure, and any 2 squares are 2 separate figures. On the divine level you still find personalities, but up there you find them combined in new ways which we, who do not live on that level, cannot imagine. In God's dimension, so to speak, you find a being who is 3 persons while remaining 1 being, just as a cube is 6 squares while remaining 1 cube. Of course we cannot fully conceive a being like that, just as, if we were so made that we perceived only 2 dimensions in space we could never properly imagine a cube. But we can get a sort of faint notion of it. And when we do, we are then, for the first time in our lives, getting some positive idea, however faint, of something super-personal, something more than a person. So like a tesseract which has characteristics that we cannot understand or cannot make sense in 3-dimensional space, so God who would exist in higher dimensional space would have characteristics that we cannot understand. So Trinity is logically, just we cannot unfathomable from our perspective, just like a cube would be unfathomable for a 2-dimensional being. So God could exist as 3 persons but still stay as 1 being. In our level 1 being is 1 person, but in a divine level a being could be 3 person without violating logic. This is something we should expect to true from a God, who is ontologically greater than us in ways. For example, humans have power, but God is greater by being all-powerful. Humans have knowledge, but God is greater by being all-knowing or omniscient. Humans can be moral, but God is greater by being morally perfect. Humans are Unitarian beings, so God is greater that he is multi-personal. Such a conclusion will follow naturally if God is greater in all aspects. A Unitarian God doesn't naturally follow if God is greater in all aspects. But a Trinitarian God makes sense if God is greater in all aspects. So this is a logical explanation of the Trinity. Now let's go over some objections against Trinity. In John 14:28, Jesus said Father is greater than I. Now Muslims and atheists will ask how could Jesus be God if Father is greater than Jesus? The answer should be, God is 1 being but 3 persons. Jesus and the Father and the Holy Spirit are equal because they are all same being. But they are different because they are 3 different persons. As a person Father is greater because he has the highest authority, but as a being they are all equal. That's why Jesus said in John 10:30 that I and the Father are 1. So we have fully covered Trinity in this video.